See, I was, you know, reading this book the other day, and it was talking about how we all watch our lives go by and wait for a hero to come and change our life. Like someone to come to us and say, "Look, guy, that thing you're chasing, it's absolutely amazing. You're gonna achieve it. Go for it." Or someone to put their hand on our shoulder and say, "Look, girl, don't give up on your dream. I know you're gonna achieve it. Just go for it." But it carries on to say, like, in every human, there is a hero and a villain. You have the power to do good and the power to do bad. There's a thin line. And you encounter this most time when you have the discussion. Should you do something that works just for you or something that works for everyone? That hero is that voice. So within you, there is hero to change your life, and that hero is you. You can't keep waiting on people from outside to come and change your life. Like some of us just wait and wait and wait while we contemplate. We'll have the discussions with ourselves like, what should I do? Or I can do this. Or like, if someone could help me, if someone could help me do this, if someone could help me do that. But then we'll forget like the power for us to do anything in our life depends on us. Like everyone has so much going on in their own lives. They say someone who's got like maybe just a little bug in the eye, they're more concerned about that getting out that bug in the eye than someone who's dying of cancer. That's how much we focus on our own pain. So if you're waiting for someone else to come and change your life, someone else to pat you on the back and say keep trying, someone else to put their hand on your shoulder say keep moving, it might not actually come. Of course, like I've read so much book within the last 2 3 years, and there's like so many people out there who just need encouragement, who have started from the wrong place, who just all they need is just motivation. And every time I speak, I'm not really actually speaking to anyone. I'm speaking to myself. The me a few years ago, the me 3 years ago, the me 4 years ago, the me 5 years ago, the me that if I knew what I knew now, the me if I had someone just telling me like, look, you don't have to wait for anyone. You have everything you need in you. You like a seed. I remember when I was about to travel, like this is like how many years ago now? I actually had everything I needed. But because I've grown up relying on other people, I was actually waiting for someone to say to me, okay, it's time you can go. I had everything I wanted. I did it myself. I worked for it. I got it. And I gave it to someone to hold it for me until it's like I needed an approval. I couldn't do nothing without getting an approval from some other people just to say, it's okay, you can go. So I realized like in life, most time, even when we have everything we need in ourselves to make our life change, to go where we need to go, even just to start, we end up waiting. We end up waiting. Why? Because we used to that. We used to looking out for helpers, looking out for someone to change our lives. They call it is it destiny helpers or something. We are so used to that. Like we have this belief that nothing we can do. Like we take ourselves out of the equation. We give all the power to other people to dictate our future, and then we complain. If you've been waiting around looking for someone to come and point you in the right direction, someone to touch you on the back, someone to, and a week is gone, a month, a year, like maybe you should just start. Because the worst that can happen, I think that's what we need to ask ourselves that question sometime. What's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen if I do something and I fail? What's the worst that can happen if I go this direction and it doesn't work out? What's the worst that can happen if I start something and I get laughter? What's the worst that can happen? I believe sometimes we need to ask ourselves that question. And I've realized that the sooner we do that, the better for us. If not, we sit somewhere that we you know we degenerate like so much that our whole life is dependent on other people leading us, other people changing our life, other people taking control of our life. Sometimes all we need to look is just like look yourself in the mirror and just don't say anything like who do you see? Because I feel there's a quote attributed to, I'm actually not sure who it was, but it says, the closer you get to the truth, the more silent you become. So, like in this circumstance, we just need to look ourselves and don't say anything. Just stare into your eyes, stare in your soul, and say, and look like, am I comfortable where I am? If you are, then that's fine. But if you're not, then you could start from there. Like, take a step, do something, work on, like, is it more, do you need like more income? Maybe work on your skill. Like, we all in this rush, like everyone has to own their own business, be their own boss. That is true. But that, I tell you, there's so many people who are doing exceptionally well working for other people. That's who they are. Everyone cannot be entrepreneur. Everyone cannot own their business. Everyone cannot be the boss. We are different. Just like our fingerprint, we're unique. Some people enjoying that steady life of going to work, getting paid, and just going on holiday. And some people enjoy the up and down of not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. So just figure out which one are you. If you're someone who very comfortable with your employment, you want to grow, then work on your skill. Improve something on your communication, on your language. Do something that's going to move you up the hierarchy. By that way, you get more money, you get more time to spend in your family, and you get to travel and do all the things you like, because why? You've worked on yourself. Jim Rohn says, work more on yourself than you do on your job. And I believe what that means, basically, it's not like you shouldn't work on your job. It means like when you improve on yourself, it improves on everything around you. When you have more skill, you could do your work faster, smarter, and earn more money. So by working on ourselves than we do on our job means we improve in everything we do. So that goes for like business owners, that goes for employees, that goes for everyone. That goes for someone who's trying to start out like new. You're basically saying, look, I'm going to start from the bottom, but I'm going to work my way up. I've seen a lot of people who start something new and they get so much promotion and people become jealous. Why? That's because they've gone into that place and think, look, I'm going to outperform myself. I'm going to outdo myself every day. And then that's recognized. Why? Because what you have to realize, like as human, people don't see you as you. People see what you bring. That's it. We are character. We are charisma. People see you as the value you bring. Human being will basically have value. The value you're conveying, that's what people see you as. That's what people describe you as. So when you go into a workplace and you're bringing more value, you're likely to move up because now you're identified with that value, because that's what people see you as. Not as, your name. Of course, you identify, but the way people recognize you is through what you can give, through what you can offer. That's why some people say, like in a relationship, they ask, what are you bringing to the table? Of course, you as a person, just being you is enough. But most time we need to go somewhere. So what are you going to contribute to this journey we're about to start? Because we're two people just coming together as human. Now we need to build something. So what tool are you bringing over? What resources are you bringing? So that's what people always say, what are you bringing to the table? So basically, when you look yourself in the mirror, you either see that person who wants more or that person who's content. And that tells you who you are. That tells you what your value is. That tells you what are you looking for, where you're willing to go, or if you're settling. Some people settle as like a result of, this is too hard, I can't do this. Einstein says, quitting is a decision. So it's not actually how big how the mountain is, how big the obstacle is. The decision not to try. I mean, it's a decision. You could say I would try, and a lot of people try. A lot of people go mountain climbing, and some people don't like height, but they still try. Without trying, you will never know who you are. I think it's Seneca who says, "No man is ever happier than him who never faces adversity, for he never had the opportunity to prove himself." So how do you know you could never climb a mountain if you never climbed it, if you never tried? It's like, I mean, people do this with food. You bring a food, they just look at it like, "Ah, no, I don't think I can eat that. I don't think I'm gonna like it." And then maybe after some discussion, they try it, like, "Oh, wow, I like it." So basically, what I'm saying, everything we're doing starts with the decision to or not to. Sometimes you don't know until you try, and sometimes you don't actually learn until you fail. I think it's Denzel Washington who was saying, if you're not failing, you're not actually trying. Because what's trying or what's failing is doing something new. They say our brains are two dimensions, like we have the right side and the left side. So when we're learning something new, it's on the right side, and when you're very good at doing that, it goes onto the left side. On the left side, it just becomes mundane. You do it day after day. You don't have to worry about it. But every time you're learning something new, it's on the right side, and that's stretching. That stretches your mind, because now you're trying to. That's when you have problem, when you're trying to figure out something new, work on something new, improve on something new, because you're stretching your mind. Cal Newport calls this stretching when he's trying to work on some new figures, some new maths or something, because you actually stretch your mind to expand, and that's how you learn. We don't improve by doing the same thing we know day and day. We improve by getting better at that, stretching, learning new technique, new way. That's how we stretch. That's how we discover ourselves. That's how, by overcoming obstacles, that's how we know who we are. And no one gets that done by just sitting and not facing challenges. And sometimes the problem is like, we're always just trying to overlook where we are, because we think, this problem is so much, like, we'll shove it under the table. No, I can't deal with this just now. Let me leave it for a while. We'll box it up. And then sometimes that comes back to bite us. Why? Because what you could have done now, when you could have focused, what you could have looked at yourself and said, I'm going to take this head on. Regardless if I win or lose, but I'm going to do this now. And then you learn, then you come face to face with yourself, then you prove yourself to yourself. Epictetus says, we must be at one, cautious and courage. As in courage in what does not depend upon, and caution in what does. So sometimes something happens in our lives that pushes us forward to take that decision to become our own hero. Sometimes adversity pushes us to do things we never believed we could do. Many of us don't think we have what it takes to be where we are, to be the heroes in our own life. Why? That's because we've grown up in a place where, like, every opportunity is taken away from us. Like, nothing works in our life until someone gives the go ahead, until someone gives the approval. Like, we find ourselves in places that is so degenerated that the only thing we could do is to look up to God. Like, we're falling into a place like ourselves as human, we basically dead inside. We're basically dead inside. Like, we have no hope of anything changing in our life than to hope on God. Like, we go through so much pain inside, and like we suffer so much in silence that we just hope and wish. Because for us, we feel like nothing can change. All we can do is just hope and wish. And those pains are like the biggest pain. This is like not physical pain. There's a quote attributed to Seneca. He says, "We suffer more in our imagination than we do physically." And I believe this because I've seen so many people, like, they can take the physical pain, they could take the pain, but imagine going through the pain knowing like your kids are not going to eat. You can't even afford one meal a day. Imagine going through the pain knowing like you don't know where you're going to end up tonight. There's no shelter. Imagine going through the pain of not even knowing if you're going to make it till tomorrow. And why there's no one cutting your flesh? Why there's no one, the emotional pain, the pain you feel inside, it's so much more powerful than just any physical pain. So I understand when people give up hope, when people lose hope, when people, all they could do is just to hope on something higher than them. All they could do is just to hope on some kind of hero, some kind of manna from heaven, some kind of heavenly spiritual, because on earth they have given up. They, like, imagine telling a family who's living like under the bridge with no income, no education, no nothing, and saying to them, look, if you pick something and you keep doing it, like, your life will change. You'll be able to afford the life of or family that actually lives on the dump site. Like, when I've been to a lot of countries where most of the developed world rubbish are exported to, so sometimes they say it's recycling, sometimes they say just like, there's actually countries out there who they get paid for taking the developed world rubbish. I think it was China was the biggest, and maybe Vietnam, Singapore, Philippines, but there's a lot of countries even in Africa. Why those things are like, harming the earth and everything, because not everything can go to landfill, not everything can be burnt. There are actually some families who makes their livelihood, their source of income is based on this rubbish. So they go there, they scavenge whatever they can, recycle, sell, do whatever. That's their source of livelihood. Now, I was listening to this documentary I was watching the other day, and this guy actually sent his kids to school, to university, through scavenging in the dump site. And when his kids get of a certain age, they actually join him at the dump site, scavenge, before they go to school. And I actually grew up, like, not that I did that myself, but I actually grew up within that environment where some kids, before they go to school, they wake up and go to the, scavenge for plastic bottle, for aluminium, wires, couples, burn it, go and sell it. And before they go to school, I was lucky enough that I found tennis, and tennis took me out of that. So I probably will have gone through that steps. Many kids, like the same neighborhood as me, they wake up. I remember the dump site was around the railway. So they run there, scavenge whatever they can. This is like a kid who has to go to school like 8 o'clock. They go to this place, scavenge, get whatever they can, and take them to the dealer, sell them, and then they go back, have a shower, and start going to school. So there's a lot. Imagine telling someone like that, like, look, don't worry, things are going to change for you. Just keep on working, keep on doing something, and think outside your box. But imagine telling someone like that, who has no hope, who has grown up like in their 40s, 50s, telling them things are going to change. So I understand when people have no hope, when people have lost hope, when people, all they could hope for is like a divine intervention in their life. And that happens around these days. A lot of people take an advantage of the poor, telling them they should hope and sow some seed and just give all the money to some religious centers or whatever, that things are going to change for them. I understand that. I came from that. But what I'm saying is, like, regardless of where you've come from, if things haven't changed for the last 5, 6, 7 years and you've been doing the same thing, if you can now ask yourself, like, what can I do differently? What can I do differently? And maybe instead of just selling going to scavenge. Let me see, where does this guy sell this thing to? The guy I sell it to, where do they sell this thing? So there's different ways we could work on ourselves. The different things we could do. Maybe we'll learn more how to, instead of being the one who's scavenging, being the one who buys it from those guys who scavenge it. We can always do something. The power is always within us. But then I know there's different circumstances which might prevent you from doing that. But all I'm saying, that power to change is in you. The power to improve is in you. The power to work on something is in you. There's like no one is going to come and change your life but you. This is sometimes we expect like our life to change based on some massive miracle, but most time everything that's changed for everyone has been little steps. They've just been taking little step after step, one day after one day, gradually after. That's it, step by step. You start as an apprenticeship, you work your way up, you get experience, you get a better house, a better car, a better salary. Before you grow little by little. But then you've been sold this dream that just wait, hope, pray, and that things are gonna change. Things are not gonna change if you don't change. Jim Rohn says that. Jim Rohn is one of my favorite motivational speaker, which I listen to, love his audio. He always says this: we human, we like seeds. And he used this analogy, we like oranges. If you take an orange and squeeze it, you're only gonna get orange juice. There's no way you're gonna take an orange and squeeze it and then you get like an apple juice. No, you're gonna get an orange juice. So within every one, there's something in you. The only thing you have to do is like, how do I bring this out of me? Like, I always speak today. Why? Because I am always saying to myself, if I did this and this, looking from where I've come from, like, I'm so grateful. Like, I decided to take the steps of taking, work on myself, trying to grow, improve. But it's continuous. Every day I'm still working on myself. Every day I'm just trying to get better. Every day, it's little steps. And I could look back a year from now and I've seen the massive improvement. Like, most other people might not see, but I have seen it because I knew where I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. This is all we need. We grow little by little by working on ourselves, by improving on ourselves, by not giving up. That's how we grow. That's how we change things. That's how things get better for us. No one person is going to come into your life, a miracle, and make things happen. That's why it's called a miracle. It's almost impossible for miracle to happen to everyone. But yet we all go to somewhere and wish for miracles. It's miracle because it's magical. Like, how many times do you get lucky? Like, you picked up, like, found money, gold on the street. How many times? It happens maybe once in, I don't know, lifetime or year or whatever, but it doesn't happen every day. And how many of you could base your life that, I'm going to live and just hoping I find, lost money or gold on the street? No, we work on it. Imagine hoping that you're going to pay your rent by walking around and you're going to find some lost money on the street or something. Imagine that. So that's the same way you hope. You put in your whole dream, your whole life on hope, on wishes, on dreams, on belief. And I say, when we have problems in our life, when we have challenges, when we have obstacles, the first thing we always want to do is run to someone else, run to some people. We would look everywhere for things to change. I tell you, we will search everywhere for things to change in our lives. But the one place we should look, the one thing we should focus on, we would never do that. The one place we should start, which is ourselves. What could I have done differently? What could I work on? What could I change? The one place we should start, we would never do that. And what would do? It's easy to follow the crowd. It's easy. Do what other people are doing. Why stand out? But most people will celebrate today. I mean, they call celebrities, for a reason. The most people will celebrate today, and that's another topic. Because another thing is, like, if you look on someone you celebrate, if you look on someone you follow, that tells you where your value lies. Most people will celebrate today. They have stood for something because they believe it's worth it. It might be the right thing, it might be the wrong thing, but at that point they stood for something and they worked on something. So not everyone, like, we admire doing the right thing, but we admire them for a reason. Maybe because they're popular and that's a value. Maybe because they're hardworking, that's a value. Maybe because other people follow them and that's a value. That tells you your value. But the most important thing is they are doing something, and that's why you have recognized them. They've done something, maybe the same thing every other person is doing, but they've done it better. They've done it well. So basically, you have to stand for something. I mean, what's more valuable than working towards something you believe in? Like, I keep reiterating that word, working towards something. Because, they say life is all about process, and some actually says life is about progress and responsibility. So it's not actually, sometimes it's not just about attaining the goal, because once you attain the goal, immediately you become satisfied for a short while, and then your focus change again. You start looking at something else. That's why they say we see what we look at, or we target what we look at. Because once you narrow your focus point to something, you go towards it, you get it, and then it changes again. Because that's how human are. We always want more. So we are happier, or we are happiest when we're working towards something, when we're about to achieve something. El Nightingale says, life is working, or happiness is working, or is the progressive. It says happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal. Progressive. I want to listen to that word, progressive realization of a worthy goal. And why did he say progressive? He said progressive because once you realize that, there's another, you start on something again, another progress again. And that's what life is about, progressively working towards something. Progressively working towards something, progressively getting better, progressively improving your skill, your writing skill, your reading skill, your speaking skill, your charisma, your conversation, your specialization, progressively improving in yourself. Exactly the same thing Jim Rohn says. You can only give what you have. And for things to change around you, you have to change. Because why? That is you. Realizing. So instead of looking outside, look inside first and say, what can I change? Because everything to change around me, it has to be me. Because why? It affects me. It might be fine for other people. It's like you're sitting in a room and it's very untidy, and you're thinking, oh, how I wish this room was tidy. And other people are so, especially if you share a flat with like a really, dirty people, or people who they don't care living in filth. So that bothers you, and for that to change means you have to make the changes. These other people, they're content, they're not worried, that doesn't bother them. They can live in there day in, day out. They're fine. So for us, things to change around us, most time we have to change. We have to be like the main character in our own movie, the hero in our own movie, or the villain in our movie. But let us be the one making the choice. The choice cannot be made for you. Why? Because it's one life, and if your life is worth something, you make the choice for yourself. We have to find something to believe in, something to work towards, something to pursue. And for me, that is hope. That is faith. Because as far as I'm concerned, You don't work towards something if you don't think there's the possibility of you actually attaining it, even if it's 1%. A lot of tennis players going to a match knowing like they could, there's a percentage. Maybe you're coming up against a seeded player, maybe you 100 in the world and the number 1 or 2, but there's always that possibility of you winning. If there's zero chance, most time you just quick turn up, default and move on. But because we go after things, because we know there's that percentage of us attaining it, even if it's 1%, we go for it. When we get there, it might be a different result, but at least we are there. At least we've come face to face to ourselves. At least we've proven ourselves. Now we can redirect our focus, navigate differently. But now we've learned from our mistakes or are overcoming that obstacle. There's another saying like, you can never become more than how you see yourself. Like, regardless of how every other person sees you, you can never outperform yourself, because the way you see yourself is naturally, like, you speak to people sometimes without saying anything, they have their head down because they can never see themselves be more than that. So you have to get to the place where you position yourself to keep trying, position yourself to keep your head up, position yourself to push yourself, because why? You are the one that matters. It's your own life, it's your own voice. You are in control. You are the hero in your own life. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters but you. If your life is worth living, then you have to go for it, regardless of what other people are going to say. That's not your business. How people perceive you, that's not your business. But what are you doing for yourself? That is your own business. How are you working on yourself? That's your own business. Are you improving on yourself? That's your own business. Are you better this year than you are last year, emotionally, physically? That's your own business. That's what you need to concentrate. That's what you need to work on. That's your benchmark. Not what other people say. When other people have gone, you left with yourself. You left with your voice. You left with that voice that you cannot change. That's what you should listen to. That's what you should try and work on. That's what. No, there's a saying by Oprah Winfrey that you should never pick it up, and you should just let it be, as in let it down. Like when people praise you and say, oh, you're so amazing, you're good, you should just say, oh, thank you. Thank you. You should never let it get to your head, because those same people are going to be the one who putting you down. And do you, like when they say, oh, you're the best in the world, oh, you take that and you leave, and when they say you're the worst in the world, you dive and kill yourself? No. You should always just maintain, when people say you are this, oh, thank you. You move on. When people say you're that, oh, thank you, move on. But you live in your own space. Jim Rohn says you should listen to people, listen to their advice, but contemplate on that and reach your own decision. So let it be you, because it's your own life. Reach your own decision, not because of what people are saying to you. There's a saying that everyone that speaks to you has a perspective. People always have an angle, good or bad. There's always an angle. Good or bad, there's always an angle. So whatever people are saying to you, think about it. How does this benefit me, my environment? Or where are we going? How is this going to work? Am I doing this for who? For me? For everyone? Or for just this person? So reach your own conclusion. Don't ever allow anyone to be the one dictating for you. Sometimes we might not have the experience, okay? We might have just started as an apprenticeship, a learner in a new industry. We're doing something, we're failing terribly. But that is better than not trying at all. They say the best you can do now is the best you can do. It might not change much, but that's the best you can do for now. So why not start now? Sometimes it's easier just like, look, you might not see the future because you haven't walked 100 miles to see the other 100 miles clearer. But you might weigh out the benefit of doing it now compared to, even if you've done it wrong, at least you've learned, compared to a year gone by and not doing it. As they say, what do we regret in life? Those things we don't do. Most things we do sometimes are reversible. You learn from it, you improve. But some things you never did, you don't know if you will have succeeded or failed, and you live with that regret. Once again, Jim Rohn says, there's always a price to pay. The price or the punishment of not doing it, and the reward of doing it. There is the punishment in not trying. We don't get rewarded for just existing. That's it. No one gets rewarded for just existing. People always say, oh, I am who I am, I'm just me. Good for you. But we all get rewarded for the value we bring. We get rewarded for the value we bring. No one just no one is rewarded just for existing. No. We get value for contribution. We get value for effort. That's why a lot of people in this current days, some people, they get so upset that some people on social welfare, and they having to go to work and and contribute and do all this, because people have this innate thing of like, for me to get something, I have to give something. Take an example for yourself. Walking past every day, you go past some guy under the bridge on the street corner asking for a change or for a penny. Of course, you might give that guy a penny, 50p, a £1, whatever. But you're always at the back of your mind, there's no way you can change that person's life. At the back of your mind, you always think, this person is an able-bodied person. Maybe they've got some disabilities you can't see or whatever, but you always have this thing. You go on your way to work, that person is there. On your way back, that person is there. You've done 8 hours, you're so tired, you're rushing home, and the person asking you to go. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, we all have different issues in our life, different disabilities, hidden and seen, like going through different things at every time. But the thing I'm going is like, you know this yourself. You always believe that people have to work for something, people have to earn something, people have to do something to get something. Action, reaction. So I'm saying, do not wait for anyone to come and change your life. You are the captain of your own ship. You have the power to make things in your life. When you decide to go, you go. You've not gone yet. Why? Because you've not decided. The choice has been there. It's on your table. It's always been there. You've not done anything because you've decided not to. That's what I'm basically saying. Everything, there's a choice. Different obstacles, different circumstances, but we always have that power of choice. Viktor Frankl says this: the last of the human freedom, the last of the human freedom is the ability to choose, the power to choose. Like, they could take everything away from you, but the power to choose is still up to you. Like, if you forgo your choice, you forgo your future. And you might complain tomorrow, next tomorrow, like people are dictating, but that was given up. Like, you gave that up when you decided not to participate, when you decided not to take something to improve yourself, when you decided not to work on yourself, when you decided not to do something for the collective good of the people. You made a decision. So every inaction is an action. Every action you don't take has its own repercussions. In life, there's this saying, like, you can never rise above your limit. And who puts this limit there? You, yourself. If you're the person who you live out of the dump, you're struggling, you're thinking, look, I can never do anything, I can never get myself out of this dump, I was born here, I'm going to die here. You have put that limit on yourself. Like, we all came from that. That's what I'm telling you. I'm not talking about growing up in the developed world, having every resources that you know. I'm talking about going to the worst of the worst places. Those who make their life from living out of the dump, from scavenging, from not knowing where the next food is going to come from not having a shelter over their head, from eating like once a day or once in 2 days, from living in internally displaced people's camp. I'm telling you, like, even at the bottom of that place, there's still a decision. There's still a decision to that you could place on yourself because of your circumstance, and you still have the power to say, look, I'm going to do something different. I'm saying any limits you place or wherever you see yourself, that's your own limit. It's you. No one can place a limit on you but you. And you know, the horrible thing is, like, you can never outperform that limit you put on you. Is it that you've allowed other people to put it around you, or you've subconsciously put that limit around you? You can never surpass that. Just like I said earlier before, you will always have your head down because you believe you're inferior to the people. Maybe because the way they speak, the way they talk, the way they dress, the car they drive, their houses, their skin color, how tall they are. You can never become who you are or who you meant to be because of who you believe you are today. Like, see, don't forgo your future for your present because you've come from the worst place. You're living in the jungle, in the slum, in the trenches, nothing, you can't speak. Like someone said, English is not a measurement of intelligence. You know, I was speaking to like a friend the other day. I was playing tennis with her, and she was telling me about this professor. She went to a wedding. She actually went to a wedding with the husband and the child, and they're speaking to this professor who came from South Korea, and the daughter was getting married. Okay, the daughter was getting married in the countryside, and then so this is like a family of doctors. The daughter is a doctor, the dad is a doctor, and then the one of the, I think the auntie or something, is a doctor. So but the auntie has to speak in the presentation, because it's like in Korea's culture, they have a lot of respect for the elder, because so basically, like in every wedding, the dad would have to speak. So the auntie was saying, this is somewhat different, because this is like the first time we're going to have sort of a ceremony that the dad is not going to speak, and I was like, why is the dad not speaking? And she was like, oh, the dad doesn't speak English. So for a second it took me like, oh, how can a professor not be able to speak English? Then I realized, like, why does he need to speak English? He's Korean. He's very good at what he does. I mean, he never thought he needed English. But then the daughter and the granddaughter and the auntie that actually needed English, they've gone on to learn English. So somehow I'm saying the measurement or English speaking is not actually a measurement of intelligence. But if you need that for your marketing if you need that to grow, if that's one of the resources you need, then go get it. Go work on it, developing it. But I'm saying there's a lot of imaginary limits we put on ourselves. Like, I can't do this because I don't have this. I can do this because I'm not from here. I can do that. That is just us. If you go to other places, I tell you, you see people doing exactly that same thing who's come from the same places you. So sometimes the problem is, like, we don't move around a lot. Someone's like, why do I need to read? Because not everyone can afford to travel. So if you don't read, you don't actually know who's going through the same thing as you, but actually they thriving, they succeeding, they living, but they have exactly the same life as you, but they just from a far place that you don't know their story. You can't you put yourself in this trap because you don't actually know there's people doing amazing things who are exactly the same as you. That's why we need to read. 50 Cent say, if you want to hide something from a black person, you should put it in a book. And of course, everyone has their opinion about that. But some people say, like, look, I need to eat first, I need to do it before I read. But the problem is, like, without reading, sometimes you actually don't know you're right. You actually don't know what you stand for. You don't actually know what you're losing. Jim Rohn says, if you think reading or educating yourself is expensive, try not educating yourself. And you see these days in a lot of young athletes who've just signed on contract, or they've been taken advantage by so many people. Why? Because they've forgone the proper They've forgone, they've seen it as like, look, I'm just good in sport, I don't care about this other thing. But now it's coming back to haunt them. They say ignorance is not a bliss. Ignorance is a tragedy. What you don't know is going to come and bite. It's going to haunt you. It's going to hurt you. That's why you have to. So stop like putting a limit on yourself. Like, oh, I can do this. I can't do this. You can do so much more. They say like we have so much capacity to do more. Like we're actually just exploring 10% of our brain. 10% of our brain. Imagine that. So work on yourself, improve yourself, take away all those limits, discard them. Whatever people say you can't become, you are more than that. I've gone places, I've traveled places, I've done things I never thought I could. But if I believe when I was growing up what people said about me, where I came from, where I would never do none of those things. I remember when growing up, I have to keep going further and further just to get away from my past. I have to keep further and further. First, I came to London. I moved Manchester, Scotland. Even I was just moving further and further just to run away from my past. Not knowing everywhere I go, I took myself with me. Nothing started changing in my life until I started realizing, like, look, man, it's not how far I run. It's not where I run to. It's what I do with wherever I am. So these days, everyone is running everywhere, but there's some people making amazing things where you are, where you're running from. So look around yourself and say, what can I do here that I am right now? What's within my power? What is within my power? What can I do? What can I change? These are the things to start noticing. That is what we're working on. We are more than we see ourselves, but we can never be more than we see ourselves, but there's more to us than we actually know. The more to us than we actually believe. Why? Because we've been brought up, we're so used to thinking that everything that's going to change our life is outside us, is outside our environment. Like we have no say in what we'll become. I'm sure you like have those family members, relatives who they blame every circumstance around them. Like everyone is at fault. Nothing has changed in their life because people have not, stepped in to change or do this for them or do that for them. But they've forgotten that these same people they are calling out, these people, they have come from exactly the same tree as that person. Sometimes same mom, same dad, same everything. But those people have gone out to make things change in their own life. Why they've sat there just focused on blaming and calling? Because they've boxed themselves already. They never see themselves more than that value they've placed on themselves. So it's time to start understanding, like, whose value are you pushing? Whose value are you living by? Whose value are you, giving your life for? Is it worth it? Is that all you want? They said there's something. I was listening to Jordan Peterson the other day, and he was talking about trying going through a month without telling a lie, or just trying going not actually just trying going a month with just telling the truth, just not tell a lie. Not that you have to tell the truth, just not tell a lie. Just imagine that. Because the thing is, like, whenever we're about to take a decision, be it the right decision, be it the wrong decision, we actually know in ourselves. We might lie to every other person, but we know to ourselves. That's like we know we're lying. And how do we do? How do we know this? We know this because we always have that small voice in our head that tells us. We have that little voice in our head that we have that discussion, like, I know I'm doing the wrong thing, but I'm going to do it either way. I know I'm doing the right thing, but I'm going to do it either way. And sometimes we'll come to that crossroad where we know we'll have to take a decision, and we'll have that voice in our head saying, is this decision I'm about to take, is it for me or is it against me? Is it for the greater good of people around me or just me? Is it for the future or just now? So we all know this thing. It goes through our head, but then we go on and take decisions. So basically, You know your shortcomings. We do. We know where we're falling short. We know where we need to improve on. We know what we need to do. But it's back to that decision. The decision to do or not to do. It's back to there again. Because every decision you take today, I tell you, back, down the road, you would have time with yourself. So you either regret what you've done or rejoice and enjoy what you've done. So whatever you are getting, ensure it will last you a lifetime, as in it will bring you a lifetime of happiness, a lifetime of reward. Because if you're taking a decision to favor someone else today, make sure whatever you're getting paid for is going to last you a lifetime, for generation, because you are only the value you bring today. And if your generation is not going to, your value is not going to last a lifetime, no one is going to pay you that price to last a lifetime. So the only value you could generate to last a lifetime is the value that comes from you. That's why they say the only wave that's worth riding is the wave that's generated by you, because that's your value. That's what you bring to the table. So when people say, what are you bringing to the table? That's what you're bringing to the table. So when people say, oh, you're not living up to your full potential, that's what they're talking about. Because there's something about you they can see manifest, for good or bad, but you actually can't see it, or you're not working towards it, or you focused on something else. So I go back to this quote from Epictetus again. He says, we must be at once cautious and courageous the same time. So we must be courageous to understand what does not depend on us, and cautious to understand what does depend on us. So basically, like, you have to understand, like, this, there's so much around me, so much obstacles, so much good, so much bad, but I have to understand what I can change and what I can change. What I can change for now and what maybe I can change later. There's another way of saying this. I think this is in the Bible. It's called the Serenity Prayer, where it says, God grant me the ability to accept things that I cannot change. The courage to change the things I can, and then the wisdom to know the difference. Because most time we don't actually understand, like, there's things we could change in ourselves, because why we don't look into ourselves. We focus on outsiders, we focus on the circumstance, focus on what people could do for us rather than what we could do for ourselves. Just like it says, like, ask what you could do for your country, not what your country could do for you. So sometimes there is because if we all come together and walk in the same direction, we are unstoppable. But first, you have to recognize the value you bring as a person. What I'm going back to again is the same thing. If you've been with me, sometimes you understand. I always do this. Go round and round in circles. It's like you can never outperform yourself, because you can never see yourself more than you are. So if you see yourself as that which has no value, then there's no value. You can't contribute. When people are saying, we're going to vote this way, you're thinking, when people are saying we're going to do this, and thinking, because why? You don't see yourself as being worthy of nothing. So therefore, you're not contributing to anything. You're not adding to anything. You're just existing. So regardless of where it has come from, when you fail to change what you can, then you've forgone your future. You've given up your future entirely. When you forgo there's some things within us that we could change today. Those things are within us. The power is already in us. It's like a seed. An orange seed will bring orange. This is within us. It cannot bring something else. That is there. We could start from there. And I go back to this word from Seneca. It says, no man is ever happier than him who never faces adversity, for he had never had the opportunity to prove himself to himself. So sometimes even Jim Rohn says you shouldn't pray for lack of obstacles. You should pray for more skills to overcome that obstacle, because then you prove yourself to yourself. Because with no obstacle in life, you're actually not proving yourself. You're actually not getting better. You're actually not improving. You're actually not working on yourself. You're actually not developing. You're actually not having any value to convey. But when you develop the skills to overcome those obstacles, you get better. They say life itself, it's actually just about responsibility. That's why you have people who are problem solvers and taking on challenges, taking on responsibilities, overcoming those things. That's what people are paid for in everything in life. We're all about value. Human, we're all about value. What value do you bring? You go to a new interview, they're asking you, what can you bring? What can you change? How can you make us grow? What value do you bring? That's what we're all about. So stop trying to suffer in your imagination of what you not. There is more to you than you ever think. If you would apply yourself, if you look at yourself differently, if you start working on something like this is my chosen goal, I'm going to go for it. They say, Seneca says this again, the only powerful is he who has the power over himself. That's it. That's where you start from, knowing the power to do anything is within yourself. The power to control is within yourself. There's a research I saw last time. It said they did this research in a lot of universities, and basically it's like people who have that power of power to defer gratifications, they end up doing well in life, better in life than those people who they haven't got that power to defer any gratification at all. So that's it's just a research I read. Like some people could forgo pleasure now for something better later. It's just like, or if you don't eat this one chocolate now, I'll give you 3 later. And some people can't afford, they'll just eat that chocolate now and now, that's it. So this goes back again to the power of self-control, the power over yourself, the power over your mind, the power of knowing like everything I want, it's already in me. Of course, you need to go outside to read more, seek more advice from people who know more, but the power to make changes in your own life, it says in your own life, is in you. Exactly where you should always look first before you start looking outside and around you, up and down. Let me give you another quote from Epictetus, since I'm on Epictetus' grind today. Another thing he says is, if you are ever tempted to look for outside approval, that's your focus on, getting appraisal from an outsiders, just like Oprah Winfrey says, never pick it up and never put it down. If you are ever tempted to look for outside approval, realize that you have compromised your own integrity. Like, just realize, like, every time like you seek an outside approval, that's fine. You're welcome to do that. In fact, you should live on it. But just know that for every time you focus on seeking outside approval, you are dying inside gradually. You're killing yourself gradually. Just like they say, cow would die 1,000 times, but a hero dies once. So every time your whole life is dependent on outside approval, you are dying inside gradually. You're compromising your own integrity. He goes on to say, if you need a witness, be your own witness. If you need things to change for yourself, be the one to start it. So don't just follow, for the sake of following. Always contemplate, always put things together and say, how is this working for me? Is this where I want to go? Does this benefit me? Does this benefit people around me? Or are we all just working to benefit one person that doesn't actually care about us? He says, nothing is more important than that. Like, this is like when you're, involved in arguments with people, like, it says, nothing is more important than I cure you of your conviction that we must stick to a decision, never to back down. Is deranged and unhealthy. So you might have different opinion, different argue point, ups and downs, but having the power to say, look, I'm choosing this, I'm doing this. If I'm wrong, that's fine. But then I have the power to change. I have the power to think again. I have the power to start it all over again. The power to do or not to do is within you. So what I'm basically saying today, it's fine to look everywhere for solution, but the power is already in you. So as you go for today, remember, you can never be more than how you see yourself, and the hero you are looking for is already within you.